I was at the University of Arizona my freshman year in a class I absolutely hated. I left and I saw a bright green sign that says, "Tired of U of A, transfer today." I don't know if it rhymed that well, but in my mind, it does.
Today I am joined by guest Danielle Dallas Roosa, actor, producer, space media.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for being on the show.
Yeah.
I'm really excited about this.
Thanks for having me.
So we have friends in common.
We do.
Jake and Maddie.
Great.
They said you'd be great. They said
High bar.
Now, I want to put this out there in the beginning. Are you sick of this? You're the granddaughter of an important astronaut.
Yeah. Yes. Apollo 14 astronaut Stuart Roosa.
Stuart Roosa.
Also had red hair.
He had red hair. Proves you guys are in the same line.
So if anyone ever says you're not related.
Here's the proof. What was Apollo 14? Remind me. My space history is poor.
What was it? It was a mission to the moon. So
was that the first one?
No. Apollo 11 was the first one. Apollo 12, then 13 had the explosion, which is really bad. Remember the Tom Hanks movie? Apollo 13?
Apollo 13, yes.
Yes. Then Apollo 14 was my grandfather's mission.
Oh, wow, so that might have been scary.
Yeah, and if they actually failed, then the Apollo program would have been cut. Just like that. So, yeah, pretty high stakes.
When was this?
1969 was Apollo 11, and I believe my grandfather's mission was 71.
A little before your time.
A tiny bit, yep. It's always just crazy because he was in his 30s, and he went to the moon.
That's insane.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
What do you do after that?
What did he do after that?
He actually went into the beer distributing.
Distribution.
That's the word.
Yeah.
Yeah, distribution of Coors Light. He had all of Mississippi Coors was his.
He did well.
I mean, I don't know what else he would do. I feel like as an Apollo astronaut, you either become super religious or you become an alcoholic.
Do they?
Yeah.
Do they become really religious?
Yeah, a lot of them did.
And is Apollo like the missions that went to the moon? Is that what that means?
Yeah.
I'm gonna ask
So there
I'm gonna
was-
ask a lot of stupid space
No, that's
questions
okay.
I know nothing besides whatever I've seen in movies. Like that's it, which is probably terrible.
So there was Mercury, which was the first one that just like went out into space. Then there was Gemini, which those two people also went into space. This is like really not technical terms, so if anyone is space listening, sorry.
You're more advanced than I am already.
And then Apollo was actually going to the moon because we were trying to beat those damn Russians.
The Russians.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The Soviet Union. What a time.
Now, it's funny that I bring up movies and space because this kind of is your wheelhouse now.
Yeah.
Space media.
Yeah, it is.
What do you do with that?
Great question. So I'm right now producing a television show that I've been working on for 4 years, which is, the name is always changing. But as of right now, it's called The Great Space Race, and it's like the Amazing Race, but space style. So training to be like an astronaut. And the ultimate prize is a ticket to go to space.
Really?
Yeah.
Do you need anybody to sign up?
Yes, you will be the first to know. As soon as it is in development, I will let you know.
Do you need a doctor on board?
Always. Yeah.
That's a good answer.
Like Dr. Bones. Is that his name? Star Trek?
Yeah.
Yeah.
His name was Bones, right.
Yeah.
What was his name? It's shooting my mind, but okay, so
Yeah, sorry.
we can talk more about that in a minute.
One sec. Your hair's hitting the mic.
What was his name?
It was Bones.
Well, Bones was like what he called him, but his name was...
No, his last name was Bones.
McCoy.
McCoy, Leonard McCoy?
Not Leonard McCoy. Dr. McCoy. I don't remember.
Something McCoy. I don't know.
No clue.
All right, well, we're back at it.
Okay.
I want to dive into your space media and all of that in a moment, but I'm curious, what's your moment?
So, it's pretty crazy because I feel like life is so interesting in which there's two or multiple different chapters, and you look at one and you're like, how the hell did I get here from over there? And I think that was this moment. My dad was military, He was a lieutenant colonel, Air Force fighter pilot. So I moved every 4 years, 3 years, 2 years, my entire life. He retired in Tucson, Arizona. I went to high school there. A lot of people were very mean to me in high school, you know, the good old bullying days of high school. And I went to the U of A, which is 40 minutes down the road from my high school. And I lived with my sister off campus, and everyone else was joining a sorority. It's a big Greek life there, or you know, a club or something or other. And I didn't do that, so I felt really isolated. I was still hanging out with the same people. I didn't really get into a club or anything, and I was, you know, pretty lost. And there was this moment I was just miserable. I remember I was coming out of, you know, those big auditorium classes. That's just, I don't know, like weed out classes.
Yeah,
Anthro
sure.
104.
Yeah.
I think that was class. And I walked out, and there was this like bright green sign that said, "Are you tired of U of A? Do you want to transfer?" And I was like, "Yeah, I do." And the application was due the next day. So a couple of my girlfriends and I, we all sat around a table and like filled out all these essays for me. It was really nice of them to do that. And I transferred actually to UMass Amherst, and I'm a drummer. I joined the drum line there, and my whole life just completely changed. And then because of that, I got a job or an internship at NASA. And I'm not particularly great at science, technology, engineering, and math, but I'm good at communication. And that's what I got my major in, which was communications. And yeah, I got a job in the newsroom at NASA, and or an internship. And that whole, I don't think that I would have ended up at NASA if I would have stayed at U of A. And because I was at NASA, I built these very, very strong connections with the administrator of NASA, all the associate administrators of NASA. And so what's really cool is now, I just was a guest on the 50th anniversary of the Apollo program broadcasting. I was one of the co-hosts.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and I talked to my mentor. His name is Bob Jacobs. He's the head of the entire news and communication department at NASA, and he's a good friend of mine. So it just, I don't think that if I didn't see that good old green sign, I don't know where I would have been. It's weird to think about.
Yeah, that is. So it sounds like the moment is the green sign.
Yeah, that's what's weird.
So you said U of A in Tucson, which sounds like was close to home, or close to where you had lived for that period of moving around or whatever. And were you excited about going to college?
I mean, I just kind of was like, all right, I guess this is just what I'm doing. You know, my school was very much like, okay, when you go to college, there's no like, if you go to college. It was very much, you're going to college. Everyone.
You mean to suggest like maybe you shouldn't have gone to college? Or maybe
No,
you would have
I'm
taken
just saying,
another...
No, I don't think I would have. I think that's 100% what I would have done. But I'm just saying there was no like, I don't know if I'm going to go to college. It was always, you're going to college.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So, so I didn't really, I don't know. I just was not, I think what's interesting about being smart is there's book smart and then there's emotional intelligence. And for me, my mom, when I was like 2, not really, I think it was more like 6, I don't know, kids' ages. Anyways, she told me once, she was like, your intelligence can't be measured by a test. And it wasn't at that time. I just, so my SAT scores were not that great. I think my brain developed like later in life. Not to say that I was like slow before. So yeah.
So you went to, it sounds like you have, as an adult, come to appreciate strengths of yours that maybe you didn't feel like you had at the end of senior year of high school as you're going off to college, and it's very SAT, grades, whatever oriented. I'm sure there's...
Very box, you're put in a box.
I'm sure there's plenty of us that like feel like we've been reduced to, you know, there's more to us than X, Y, and Z, especially as you blossom as an adult. So you go to, when you saw this green sign, like, were you a freshman? Were you there for 6 months?
I was halfway through my freshman year, and I just like hated it.
And you hated it. So you didn't partake in the main social sorority, fraternity kind of Greek life. You know, I think about people who may identify with a lot of these, that kind of a point. Tell me about some of the feelings. Like, what was that like at that point in your life? I mean, is it fair to say that was kind of a low?
Yeah. I mean, I think I think if you don't, my sister was a senior and I was a freshman. So we had, there's a big difference between 18 and, or 17 at the time for me. And then, a senior in college, there's a big, you're not in the same place. So for me, I was hanging out with some of her friends, but they're so much older than me, it felt like at that moment. But I just didn't have a good support system, I guess. So I was just like, I don't know. I look back now and I'm like, oh, I made it through it okay.
Yeah.
But when you're like, you look back and you're like, wow, I was not happy at all. And it was interesting because when I got on the plane to go to Massachusetts, I've never been to Massachusetts before. I strapped in and I was like, what the hell am I doing? But I think growing up military really did help me because I moved all the time. So that's like going to a new place wasn't like crazy for me because
it kind of probably felt normal.
Yeah.
When you said you were going to Massachusetts to check the school out, or did you?
No, I was enrolled. I was going.
Wait a minute.
Yeah, I actually, so I've always been a drummer, and someone in my drumming group was like, hey, you should check out the drumline there. It's really good.
So I want to ask you a question. It sounds like things had gotten to a point with your living situation where you were primed and ready to go.
Yes.
And you saw this green sign.
Green sign.
Did you feel guilty, responsible?
No.
Never felt that.
Mm-mm.
So this was an unhealthy, stressful environment. You walk out of class. Do you remember what the class was?
I really think it was Anthro 104. Anthropology.
You remember the topic? I'm curious how...
I actually think I do. His name was, I swear this is his name, Dr. Weiner. He said it was Weiner.
No.
We all called him Dr. Weiner, but his name was Dr. Weiner.
Poor guy.
And he was giving us a lesson about, Anthro 104, whatever that was.
So you walk out, and can you describe like I'm imagining, maybe this isn't true, but you see this sign and then you visualize a brighter future, something that was better. Did you have like a stress and angst, whatever you saw the sign, it was relieved? Like what was the emotional process that occurred in you in that moment?
I think sometimes when you're the most lost, you don't know that you're lost. And you're just kind of like shutting off, and then you're just like walking amongst all your peers, just walking. And then there's this glimmer of, for some reason, there's this like thing that makes you aware of how bad you feel. And so I was like, oh shit, I'm sad. This may be my ticket out.
Shut off, sad. Like when you said walking much, because I almost thought of like a zombie, like you're just not feeling.
Yeah, I mean.
That was your coping mechanism.
Yeah, exactly. That was a really weird noise I just made. No,
that was perfect. It worked with that. You cut your feelings off. That's what you that's what that was. So you saw this green sign. And then what did you feel? Did you feel something? Or that's when you realized?
No, it was like application due on, and it was in like, I don't remember the exact date, but it was very, very soon. And so I was like, fuck, I gotta do this right now.
So then that was like, you want to get it done.
Yeah, so
because you wanted to escape.
Yeah.
Wanted to get out. So you got on the plane. So wait a minute. So it was your number 3, and you said it's a transfer, but it sounds. You said it was like a exchange, but it sounds like you just transferred. It's like goodbye Arizona.
Yeah. So it was supposed to be
UMass.
a semester exchange, but so basically there was this big conference where someone from the U of A goes to is sitting across from someone from UMass saying, I'll give you this student, you give me this student. It's a swap. Or I don't know how they do it.
Yeah, an
just
exchange,
how it happens in my mind. And so then I was there for a semester, and it was like freedom. I felt so happy to be gone. And I loved it. So I went to the administration office and said, I want to transfer here permanently. And then it was great. I did just that.
So you did an exchange that turned into like a permanent transfer of colleges. So wait a minute. So, I mean, I don't even know. Does Amherst have Greek life? Like,
no, not really.
Was it just getting away from the situation in Arizona that was
I mean, but it's a much smaller school.
Yeah.
And the drumline is amazing, and so being the only female drummer is also really cool too. Cause
the only female drummer.
I can play better than you, and then you're like, yeah, watch me.
You could talk trash to the
boys.
Fun.
Yeah, but I mean, it was like it's one of the best drum lines in the country. So we were practicing for 6 hours a day. It was insane. So that's where all my weekends were going, as we were touring. We were going here, we were going there, and so the community.
So you probably had a immediate social life through that, and you did that not at the exchange, but like after you transferred.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So you had all of these other things that were not only did you get away from Arizona, but you had all these other things that kind of fell into place there.
Mm-hmm. And then my last semester, because I had so many credits from U of A, my last semester, my senior year, I only had to do one semester, and I always wanted to study abroad, so then I went to London for my last semester. And it was fun.
I was just in London. London's like 2 hours from anywhere in Europe.
I know. It's amazing.
I wish I would have done something like that.
And the accents.
You like the accents?
I feel like you can say the rudest thing in a British accent, and you're like, wow, that was nice.
Maybe here.
I know. Here, yeah.
Do you have a British accent?
Oh, it's so bad. You're like, I can talk like this. No, that's bad.
I'm not going to do mine. It's worse. Yeah, it's pretty bad.
Okay, well, just...
Maybe I'll drop it in later.
Okay.
Yeah, in the middle of the interview.
Okay.
So how did you get, so you've got this grandfather who's this large figure in space, in the space program. How did you circle around at college, drumming? How did you get into NASA?
I had that internship at NASA, and that just opened every door for the rest of my life, really. And I think that was
When did you do that internship?
Between my sophomore and junior year.
And how did you get that? How did you decide? How did you think? I'm trying to like follow your spirit, your soul here, and it's like Arizona sucks. You get on this plane and you're just like, get me away from that. And then you're like, hey, the drumline's great. I've got to like now college is great, like right, get a good college experience. And then I'm like, so what got in your head and what motivated you to be like, oh, I'm gonna check out this internship?
My mom was like, you're doing internships. I was like, okay. And I think honestly there was a little bit of nepotism in there because they don't have interns in the communication department where I interned in the newsroom. And my parents knew the right people. I wish that wasn't it, but that's exactly what happened.
I appreciate your honesty.
Yeah.
So you took advantage of some connections. Were you very interested in this, or were you just like, oh, mom's making me do an internship, I guess I'll do this?
When I started pursuing communication, I loved the classes. I love understanding how to communicate. Like it's like an art. It's an art form, and I loved learning about it. I still read about it.
Tell me more about that. Explain it to me as someone who does not appreciate it like you do.
For example, the love languages. Have you ever heard of these?
Gary Chapman, the 5 love languages? Yeah. Yes, they're incredible.
But that's life. It's like you can have the biggest disagreement with someone, and it's usually because you're just not understanding one another. It's
touch, acts of service.
Physical touch, acts of service, words of affirmation, gifts, and quality time.
That's so good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I think a lot of reasons why there's conflict is people are just sticking in their, specific, and that goes to NASA too. You can sit across the table from a aerospace engineer and they're explaining something to you, and it's my job to say, okay, I need you to break this down because I need to tell the country.
You need to translate this
to make this, because if you're just talking about nuts and bolts and I can't even use the words that they use, but
jargon. This makes sense to me in a medical context. I mean, I can sit here and talk about choledocholithiasis, or I could tell you that there's a stone in the duct that goes to the gallbladder that's blocking things and causing problems.
Yeah, I prefer option B of that.
Right, so do I.
Yeah.
So, okay, so circle back. So the 5 love languages, how is that communications and...
you mean my education?
Yeah.
It's like, well, that's just an example off the top of my head that I could think of.
I think it's a good one, and I want you to give me your communications.
What is it called when you write a paper at the thesis?
Yeah.
My thesis statement.
Use your communications brain to.
Yeah. Well, I think I knew that I wanted to go down that route, And I knew that I wanted to work at NASA because that's cool. So I just did. And I think a lot of times even my mentor Bob will say, we still have not had an intern like you ever, because they didn't give me a computer my first day. And they were like, you can go home. And I was like, absolutely not. I am in DC right now. I am at headquarters. I'm not going home. So I knocked on everyone's cubicle. And I said, hi, I'm Danielle. I'm your intern. What can I help you with? And I had the amount of guts, or just not thinking through things, I would have never said what I did then. I walked into the administrator's office. I said, hi, I'm Danielle Roosa. I'm your new intern. I want to learn from you. Mm-hmm. What can I do? And then I was in a limo with him, and I wrote his speech, went to the Naval Academy, and he gave
Who is this? I'm sorry.
This was Charlie Bolden, the administrator of NASA under the Obama.
A big shot. The top guy of NASA?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
I just walked in. And so by the end of it, because I was just constantly asking everyone what I can do, and
Putting yourself out there.
I was writing speeches. I was
aggressive
working with the Mars Curiosity rover. I was writing all of that stuff. I was working with the administrator. It was awesome. I went to the White House. We had this thing on Capitol Hill where I went, and this was the first time.
Exciting.
Yeah. So it was the first time, especially seeing how I had kind of a complicated freshman year. It was the first time where I'm like, I am worthy of success. I feel special because I am succeeding. So, and yeah, changed my life.
You just spelled it out. I'm thinking about all these things are getting exciting. There's this trajectory that's kind of going up for you, and contrasting. This feels so great, and like you just said, worthy of success, and contrasting that with, gosh, what did you you felt the opposite before
mm-hmm.
when you were stuck in that situation in Arizona.
Yeah.
So it sounds like when you and help me understand, okay, you were in DC. NASA has a building like the Pentagon. What are we talking about?
It's a very boring
building. Are you laughing
building.
at my understanding of is it just a
it's a bunch of
three-story thing, and there's a bunch of geeks
suits.
with glasses and whatever on?
Yeah, and they're all really old.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
And so you're rolling around there for a semester or a summer or whatever.
A summer, yeah.
Yeah,
and then just at my uncle's house right there. So
you did communications where you're writing and you're doing all this stuff and kind of putting yourself out there. And what was it like to be in NASA?
It was fun. It was really fun. Yeah, it was weirdly the closest I ever felt to my grandfather at that point. Now I feel, especially because I pivoted, and now we'll go down that thing later. But yeah, it was really cool. And I got to see some amazing things, and it was. I actually put together this book for my dad and my uncles, his brothers, and it was all the internal documents of the Apollo mission, of what their goal was, how much they made. They made nothing, where they were going to land, what each, So I made this booklet of all the internal documents that are now not internal. So
that's awesome.
It's pretty cool. It was really cool. And then they had a news section too of all the Apollo 14, and I saw all these images of. The Apollo astronauts at that time were celebrities. So there are all these photos of my dad as a kid with all these Secret Service agents all around him, and they went to Disneyland, and the Secret Service agents were with them, and they were getting off planes, and it was they were
They were heroes.
Yeah.
Could have died,
yeah.
That mission right before them.
Yeah.
Tell me about your grandfather.
He was I wish I knew him better. He died when I was 2, but I feel like I've heard so much about him that I know him. But yeah, he was a really poor boy from Oklahoma who was just really, really, really smart. And one of my favorite stories about him is he had one nice shirt, and he was born on a ranch in Oklahoma. I don't know if he was born there, but that's where he was living at this time. And he just came from church, and these guys threw a cigarette at him. And he's like, okay, if I see where this is going, in a southern accent, he was like, but before we get into this, I need to change my shirt. So he left the fight, changed his shirt, and then they were all gone. But he was very, very man of few words, and I don't know, really smart.
You don't really have any memories of him at 2?
No.
I'm curious how you ended up at NASA and that internship, and kind of I'm wondering, you seeking to connect with that and to know more about who he was. And
Absolutely, and I think if we're kind of fast forwarding time, so my next internship between my junior and senior year was at MTV. I hated it. I hated those people.
How did you end up at MTV after NASA?
I looked up best internships, and Viacom was one of them, so I just applied. Sometimes I look back and I'm like, I just went for the Hail Mary a lot of the time, and I didn't think about it. I had no anxiety of what if. No, that only started recently.
You took some chances.
Yeah, I did.
As we get older.
Yeah, it's like, and then I look back and I'm like, oh my God, Danielle, you said what? Why? That's so ballsy. Oh my God.
No, I admire the spirit of this young lady.
So yeah, I went, and I think once you have NASA on your resume, it's like, come on in. It's like a really cool thing. So then I worked at MTV in New York. Then in London, I worked at
Wait a minute, you didn't like MTV, why not?
It's like a sorority. No offense to them. It's just
You weren't in one. Were you in one at UMass?
No.
What do you mean like a sorority?
It was just very like, oh my God, hey, how are you? So look at this outfit, and there was no like, it just reminded me of everyone. I hope they don't watch this, but.
You kind of didn't like, hey. I don't think you're saying, I think that's fine.
I remember my first day actually at NASA, not my first day at NASA, but I have a little bit of dyslexia. It's not terrible, but I just like invert, I don't know. So I had another friend in the history department where we would send each other our documents, and we would edit it and then send it back to one another. We were in completely different departments, and it was really good teamwork, whatever, working with one another. So my first day of MTV, oh my God, I will never, ever forget this. We all shared, there were 4 computers, we all shared the same email, all of us, okay? So if you send an email and someone replies, all of us.
So annoying.
So we were asked to do this one thing, and there was this girl, and she was on Tinder. Tinder just came out, and she's just like, oh my God, and she's talking the whole time. I'm like, I don't like you. I'm just gonna do my thing. And so I sent her the document, and I said, I'm gonna run to the restroom. Can you just look over this and make sure there's no typos? This bitch sends all my work to the person that I was doing the work for, saying that she had done it. And,
oh, wow.
Hey, as per your request, I have compiled blah, 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 blah. Thank you.
Wow.
And signed her name.
Blatant.
We share an email. So I come back from the bathroom and I say, hey, thanks so much, Stephanie. And then I open it and I'm like, oh, I'm sorry, Nicole. Thanks, Nicole. So I open it and I'm like, did you just send that? She's like, yeah, didn't you ask me to do that? And I was like, oh. Yeah, it was very backstabbing, that place, and I did not.
What were they doing at MTV at the time? What kind of shows?
This
was
programming? This was Miley Cyrus's and Blurred Lines, Robin Thicke. That was the year.
I remember Robin Thicke.
Yeah.
I remember that video.
Yeah, and also Miley Cyrus and him. It was very uncomfortable.
I don't remember the Miley
the
Cyrus
VMAs.
thing.
She was like.
Is that when she twerked on him or something?
Yeah. I think that was the birth of twerking.
Okay, so MTV, bump in the road, but I feel like you're still upward trajectory.
Yeah.
Then what?
Then I worked at a PR company in London, which was fun. And that's when I decided, I was working the Hunger Games premiere in Piccadilly, and it was so much fun. But then I realized this is not what I want to do. And I've always been an actor throughout my entire life, and comedy is my saving grace throughout life. You have to laugh. So then I moved out to LA right after, and then I lived in a living room.
So wait a minute. I'm like, so we had such a good time at NASA. You did great. You're doing all these things for MTV. Then you did this thing in London, and I'm like, it seems like the natural progression to me is, oh, let's do some more for NASA or find something in communications there. But you're like, no, I want to act and do comedy.
Yeah.
Where did that come from?
I've always had it. I don't know. And then working at, I don't know. They offered me a job. I was like, no, I don't want it.
You didn't want to do that.
Mm-mm. And then I lived in a living room with a crazy person who had a cat that was the size of a small lion. And it vomited in my shoes all the time.
The lion.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
These shoes?
No. They were shoes from London, though. I was very mad.
So you come to LA and you do acting, and now I feel like we're going full circle. Now you've got space media.
Yeah.
Tell me about that.
Okay. So here I was. I graduated early. Was living in the living room of a crazy Catwoman. And I went back to graduate because my mom was like, we have to get the photo, with the...
You hadn't graduated at
No.
that point from UMass.
No, because they only do the walking ceremony once a year.
Okay.
So what was supposed to be the second semester of my senior year, I had already moved out here because I had already graduated. I already have
You
enough.
told me that. You had it early.
So then I went back to do the whole walking ceremony. And on my way back, oh, this is amazing. So the person next to me, I graduated with a 4.0. The guy next to me,
Good for you.
thank you. The guy next to me got a job at Microsoft. And the other guy was working as a coder for SurveyMonkey. And they were like, what are you doing? And I was like, I'm working at Buca di Beppo in Santa Monica. They're like, what's that? And I'm like, you don't need to know. Family-sized Italian food, it's great. It was just a very low, like, oh, okay, what the hell am I doing? And when I had a layover in Dallas, and I got a voicemail from my crazy roommate saying, you left a hair tie on the floor, my cat could have eaten it and died. And then I just started crying because I was like, oh my God, what have I done? I've had all of this experience, and now I'm in Buca di Beppo in Santa Monica, and a crazy Catwoman. And there was this guy who sat next to me, and he had little cufflinks that were planes. And so I just mentioned, is that an F-16? And he was like, yeah, it is. I was like, oh, great, my dad's a pilot. And he actually used to be the CEO of Blockbuster, 7-Eleven, and his name is Jim Keyes.
What? Did you randomly meet Jim Keyes?
Yeah, and we were talking back and forth for a really long time about wanting to do space. I wanted to approach him about an idea about doing a show about space. And so then we together created Back to Space.
Wait a minute, because, I'm sorry, he was the CEO of all of these things and some media empire or something? Okay.
And I just randomly met him. And then...
So you pitch him the show idea?
Yeah, like a month after I meet him. He gives me his card, I call him, and I say, hey, let's meet up.
You're smart with the connections.
Thank you. I was in D.C. for a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, you know how to play that game.
So I met up with him, and then we created Back to Space, and he's the co-founder of Back to Space, and he got a lot of Texas entrepreneurs involved. And
what is Back to Space?
Back to Space, well, it's had many evolutions. I'll tell you the story, but I don't want to. Are you crunched for time? Okay. So originally, it's called Back to Space because we were going to put an Apollo astronaut back into space on a commercial space capsule, and there happened to be
like an old guy? Like
an
space
80s,
cowboy kind of thing?
Exactly.
Like that movie?
Yes, that's exactly right. Except for the universe isn't going to die.
Back to Space.
Yeah, so that's why it was called Back to Space. It is called.
Just for fun?
No, it was going to be, that was the TV show at the beginning.
Oh, it's a show?
That was a show.
Like a
That was
reality or a docudrama or some kind of...
Yeah, and then we were going to live stream into classrooms worldwide using Microsoft's state-of-the-art technology.
I'd watch that.
I would watch that too. So we ended up needing to
What
raise
do they
money.
do?
Yeah, and we needed to raise X amount of money because we found a commercial space company out in Tucson, ironically, that it was a weather balloon that gently lifted people to the edge of the atmosphere and back down. And it was a 5-hour ride instead of these other companies. That was just it's going to be a quick, up and down.
Yeah.
So I was like, this is perfect. They hadn't built it yet, so we were asked to raise a certain amount of money. That's why Jim and I started the company, was to raise money for this specific purpose. And it was amazing. It was supposed to be great. We brought in Al Warden, Apollo 15, Walt Cunningham, Apollo 7.
How old are these guys?
80, 90, 85.
Wow.
Yeah. And
are they safe to do that?
I mean, I don't know.
Maybe that's the doctor in me that's...
Yeah. We didn't get that far because the commercial space company was like, we closed our C round of investors. We have a new CEO coming in, and we're not working on commercial space anymore.
Oh, so that got nixed.
Yeah, so then I was like, oh my God, I'm crying. So then I had to find this one producer, or a producer. I walked into WME actually, and I pitched the idea, and I had nothing. Jim was like, oh, I'll meet you there. I'm gonna fly my plane in. And then he was
fly
like,
my plane in too, and I'll meet you on the runway.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know any of these people. We're not ready to pitch. Anyways, I was looking for a producer like crazy because we had already assembled a team of all these Dallas entrepreneurs raising money.
Yeah.
We raised a significant amount at the portion, so we were like, what the hell are we going to do?
Yeah.
And then I went around town and I had like the worst pitches of my life. And there came to this one pitch where they're like, okay, do you have a sizzle? And I had just learned that the commercial space company was no longer going to do what we were pitching around town. And so then I was like, honestly, no, I don't know what the fuck I'm doing here. And the guy was like, this is amazing. And he walks up and he shuts the door and he's like, here's who you need to talk to. And he slid me this guy's name and number. And I called him, and he's the producer that I'm working with. And so my producers are Christopher Cowan. He did the Decade series on CNN. He did Magnificent Desolation and also Apollo 13. And then the other one is Heyman Washington. He just stepped down from the president of the Television Academy, and he did The Amazing Race. He was the executive producer for The Amazing Race.
Wow.
And when I talked to Chris, he was like, you can't do this because no one really wants to see old white men on television right now. So we need to make this more sexy. And so we're going to incorporate the Apollo astronauts as stunt casting, but it's not going to be like going that route. It's going to be more like challenge-based. Science is fun.
So wait a minute. So the show's going to happen, and it's going to be a reality TV where we're putting some random winners onto a space shuttle and shipping them up into space for a minute, or maybe I didn't pitch it like you would.
No, it's going to be.
So how would you pitch the show?
Well, it is a challenge-based show with the ultimate prize of going to space. So it's like The Amazing Race, but space style.
The grand prize is you go to space.
Mm-hmm. Which we already have an agreement with a commercial space company. So it all worked out.
I'd watch that show. When's it coming out?
I don't know. We're in talks with one specific network, but we've had some complications, so we might have to go back and start pitching everything again, which would be annoying, but
it's a fun project.
Yeah, so that's my life. I feel like my life is full of ADHD moments.
How so?
There's just like so many different like weird things where people are like, I don't get it. What do you do? I'm like, that's a great question. I like wine, some board games sometimes.
Sometimes the themes in the story doesn't become evident until you're looking at it from the future, from it already happening.
Yeah.
So that's what you're working on now.
Yeah.
That's exciting.
Yeah. Just did a movie. That was fun. Doing another movie, not related to space. That's fun. So yeah.
How far you've come since that moment with the green.
Green sign.
So, okay, so sitting here now, reflecting on this, trajectory of this moment, you saw this green sign and your life went from Arizona to Massachusetts and DC, and now you're in LA. How does that feel, looking back at that story?
Pretty great.
Feels good.
Yeah.
Like from where you've been. And
Yeah. Actually, I forgot to include this because I think it's really funny. When I was at U of A, there's this hate website that it was like college gossip. And I don't know who I pissed off, but they put my photo and said like horribly mean things to me. Actually,
cyberbullying?
Yeah, it was like the first cyberbullying thing that ever happened to me, or still to this day has ever happened. But it was a really weird experience because I walked in, it was really mean. They were like
what were they saying?
They were like, she's over. So the site is called The Dirty, okay, and there's this guy named Nick. He's from Scottsdale, obviously, because all assholes are from Scottsdale. Sorry if anyone's from Scottsdale. And he created this website, and then there's two different categories. It's like, would you sleep with her? And he never says yes. He always says no, and then insults the person. Or put her on blast, which is like say something mean about her. So either way, you're screwed. And it was pictures from my Facebook.
King Nick.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's not even a good name.
Sounds like a winner.
Yeah. Anyways, and it was like, she's overweight, pale, and it looks like she has too much plastic surgery in her face. And I was like, okay. And it was really mean. And then people could comment on it, and it was horrible.
You're like, I have been tanning.
I'm in Arizona. This is the tannest I have ever been. And if people are getting plastic surgery to look like me, okay. But anyways, it's funny because I think I know who posted that. And this person, I had a video that came out, and it was like this comedy rap video with Carrot Top. It's not important, but that went viral, and it was all over the front of BuzzFeed and everything. And this girl had the audacity to walk up to my parents and say, "Oh my God, I was a huge fan of Danielle when she was in Arizona. Like, we were such good friends, and I'm just so happy that she's doing so well."
Oh.
And so looking back now, especially on all the things that happened, I'm pretty damn proud of myself because I really did not fall down ever. I was like, ow, this hurts, but I'm going to keep going.
Some rough times.
Yeah.
What would you tell that version of you, like somebody who's struggling or going through a tough time in college, dealing with bullying shit online? Like, what would you tell them? What is important? How did you get through that? What was important?
I swear, I think there's something wrong with my brain. Like, I just don't, I just was like,
maybe,
okay.
But how about something that people can
Right.
learn also?
Don't listen. They're really sad. Whoever takes the time to literally copy and paste photos of you and then write something mean about you, they live a very sad life.
Bullies usually have their own issues of trauma and shit.
Yeah, but you know what's
childhood.
interesting? When I go to bed, there's that second where I reflect on my life, right? And I'll feel bad about something that I said in like 3rd grade or 4th grade, Do you ever have this moment where you're like, I shouldn't have said that. That's mean.
Yeah.
I
Sure.
hope that those people are haunted for what they did because to do that to someone, it's one thing if you approach someone and you're like, hey, listen, this is what you did to me and I'm a little bit upset. Okay, great. Let's have a conversation about it.
Yeah.
But to go out of your way to be, and it's happening everywhere. Like, the suicide rate is so high because of cyberbullying. It's awful. And no one's doing anything about it. But I think the advice would be recognize that that's a very small moment in your life, and there's a lot more. Not everyone thinks that about you. And the people who pay attention to things like that aren't your friends anyways. And it's just, we live in a world today that you can say whatever the hell you want, and you feel entitled to say whatever you want because you don't have to look someone in the face. But I guarantee you, if that person, whoever it was, walked up to me, they would say nothing.
Mm-hmm. Isn't that fascinating?
It's completely fascinating.
I went on television long ago, and the internet chat rooms were merciless. Like
They're
were
mean.
Awful. Some of the worst things I've ever heard. But every person I met in person, they're like, "Oh my God, I loved you. You were my favorite." Like, people are really nice in person, but behind that computer screen, ooh.
Yeah.
There's an evil. It's a funny thing, but it's a thing.
Yeah, but I do think, and this is something that I think the teenage brain just doesn't understand. Well, the teenage brain isn't structured to have long-term consequences. You don't think about that. It's all short-term, right? So what is that, the hippocampus? You're the doctor.
The hippocampus is in the brain, that's correct.
Great. Ding, ding, ding.
I believe that is in the midbrain.
Great. Yeah, but I just think if anyone is going through that, just understand that that is a moment of weakness for someone who's very sad to say something like that. And how cool is it that someone hates you that much? You occupy someone else's time.
God, I think when that stuff came out for me, I went on The Bachelorette 6 years ago, and that was just, you just get doused and lit on fire online. Like, it's awful. And then that was really easy. I remember looking at it and be like, okay, I'm not going to look at that anymore.
Yeah, you can't.
And I'm not going to look at that anymore, and I'm just going to get that. Because other people can think whatever they want. They can think trash. They can think the worst things about you. They're entitled to think whatever they want.
Yeah.
It's not my reality, And so just kind of cutting that stuff out and just, now it's easier said than done, especially if it's in a social circle and there's a lot of, there's a sting to being.
Yeah, but I think also, but that's why I don't really care I actually looked at the site 2 days ago because it came up in conversation, and there are so many death threats of like, I hope this bitch dies.
Wait a minute, your Arizona site that
it's
they
still
made
up. Don't look.
that
Don't
Nick,
look at it, Nick.
douchey Nick
It's still up.
It's
Yeah.
still running?
Luckily, I've done enough, so it's like page 4 of my Google search. But don't look it up because then it'll be traction, and then it'll come up to the top. You know what I'm saying?
Okay, we're gonna cut that because when you say don't, people do.
Yeah, but
Do what you
then
say.
maybe cut also the name of the site. But anyways, yeah. But it's just like to know that someone cares about you so much to go out of their way to be mean. That's nice.
I think you're bringing up all these kind of different ways to kind of play with this moment, tough moments to get through them. I think it really helps to take a long-term perspective and to know that these things are just specks of dust. You know, like you can always reflect on times earlier when it stung, and then it goes away and it doesn't hurt anymore. You know, and you can like take the long-term approach, stick to who you are, what's important to you, and you just kind of let everything else go.
Yeah.
People are always going to talk. Especially they're going to talk if you're pretty and you have great skin and great cheekbones and whatever else they said about, or if you're successful. Like the more of all of that you are, the more
Hate
you're going to get. It's almost a sign of success. Anyway.
Basically, I'm a celebrity.
That's exactly where I was going.
Yeah.
with that. Hey, this has been good.
Yeah.
Thanks for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me.
Do you want to close out for us? Is there anywhere you want people to go?
Oh, yeah. Where am I looking? Am I doing like, hey guys, or am I just continuing?
Why don't you tell me where you want people to go, and
Okay.
then you can close the show out
Okay.
and look in the camera.
So what I'm doing now and focusing a lot of my time on is obviously space media.
Yep.
So my company is called Back to Space. So you can go to www.backtospace.com.
Nice. And
Yeah.
is there social media they can follow you at?
Back to Space. Oh, me?
You,
Yeah, Danielle Dallas.
Danielle Dallas.
That's my actual middle name.
Backtospace.com
Mm-hmm.
and Danielle Dallas.
Mm-hmm.
This has been great. Take us on home.
What's the whole name of the show?
Life can change in a moment.
Okay. Okay.
You
that's
just
it.
do whatever you want.
Thanks so much for tuning in to Life Can Change at Any Moment. Right?
Life can change in a moment. But we'll take it.
Thanks so much for tuning in to Life Can Change in a Moment. Thank you for having me.
It's been fun. Thanks for watching the show today. Please subscribe to the podcast to get these right when they are live. Rate, review, share them. We will see you next time.
Is this live?
Yeah.
In an area of the country that consumed, in my opinion, almost mindlessly, fried chicken, country fried steak, macaroni and cheese. I ate bacon and eggs for breakfast. This wasn't a question.